Have you ever been inside a perfectly fine relationship until your brain convinces you it is falling apart? A simple delay in a reply, a tiny shift in tone, or one missed goodnight message, and suddenly your thoughts start racing. Are they losing interest? Did I say something wrong? Are they pulling away from me? Sound familiar? Stay with me, because this pattern is running more relationships than you realize. What you are doing is not protecting yourself. It is quietly sabotaging the connection you worked so hard to build. Overthinking tells you a comforting story that if you just analyze every word, every pause, every silence, you will stay safe. But the truth is the opposite. Overthinking does not keep you safe. It keeps you stuck. It builds problems that were never there, turns small moments into emotional landmines, and slowly drains the joy out of what could be a beautiful bond. And even when you know you are overanalyzing, it still feels impossible to switch it off, because your nervous system has been trained to scan for danger in love, especially if you have been hurt before. That hyper-alert mode becomes a habit, and unless you know how to interrupt it, it will quietly run your whole relationship. In this rewrite, we are going to walk step by step through exactly why overthinking happens in love, and how you can finally take the steering wheel back from your anxious thoughts. You will learn how to spot the early warning signs, how to turn spiraling anxiety into clear-headed calm, and how to feel safe inside your own mind again. This is not about ignoring your gut feeling. It is about learning to trust your gut without letting fear hijack the wheel. Let's start right where the healing begins, with awareness. Overthinking in relationships does not come out of nowhere. It is not some random bad habit you picked up one Tuesday morning. It almost always has deeper roots. At its core, overthinking is your brain's desperate attempt to feel safe. When love feels shaky or unfamiliar, your mind kicks into high alert and starts scanning for anything that could possibly go wrong. You begin to analyze every text, read between the lines of casual conversations, and replay small moments on a loop. Not because you want to, but because your body has quietly learned to associate love with risk. This usually starts from old experiences, moments where you were hurt, lied to, ghosted, betrayed, or simply left without closure. Even when this is a brand new person sitting in front of you, your brain does not really see a new person. It sees patterns. Similar silences, similar delays, similar tones, and it whispers, "Last time this happened, you got burned, so let's figure it out before it happens again." So it overthinks. It tries to predict and control the future, thinking that if it can just solve the puzzle early enough, you will be spared from pain. But here is the painful catch. Overthinking does not actually protect you, it just disconnects you. It pulls you out of the beautiful present moment and drops you into a mental maze with no exit sign. Instead of enjoying the early butterflies of a new connection, you are watching the connection under a microscope, hunting for proof that something is wrong. And here is something nobody warns you about. When you look for problems, your mind will always find them, even when none of them are real. Over time, that constant scanning creates a quiet tension between you and your partner. You may become more reactive, less trusting, a little emotionally distant, all because your mind is fighting a battle your heart never agreed to enter. Another big reason some people overthink in love is the simple lack of internal security. When you do not fully believe you are lovable, worthy, or enough, you subconsciously start expecting other people to confirm those doubts for you. So when your partner does not reply right away, or when something tiny feels slightly off, it taps straight into that old fear. A little voice whispers, "I knew it, I am just not enough." This is how overthinking becomes self-fulfilling. It is also worth mentioning that overthinking often gets fueled by perfectionism. If you carry very high standards for yourself, or you secretly believe that a healthy relationship should always feel smooth, certain, and easy, then any form of conflict, ambiguity, or unexpected change can feel like a giant red flag waving in your face. But the raw truth is this: no real relationship is free from uncertainty. Love always involves some level of risk, and the more tightly we try to control love with our thoughts, the less room we leave for connection, vulnerability, and trust to grow naturally. Understanding all of this is the very first step toward real change, because once you can see that your overthinking is not random, and more importantly, that it is not some personal failure, you can finally begin to untangle it. You can slowly start replacing fear with curiosity, anxiety with gentle awareness, and doubt with quiet trust. And that is the moment, often a small one, when everything begins to shift. When you find yourself spiraling, your thoughts racing, your chest tightening, every tiny detail suddenly turning into a potential disaster, there is one powerful technique that can stop the overthinking almost in its tracks. It is simple, but most people never even think to use it in the heat of the moment, so listen closely, because this next part changes everything. Here it is. Interrupt the pattern by asking yourself one sharp question. What do I actually know? And what am I only assuming? That is the whole tool. But please do not let the simplicity fool you. This single shift can completely rewire how you react to anxiety in real time. When we overthink, we blur the lines so cleverly between fact and fiction that we stop noticing where reality ends and fear begins. Our minds build entire stories out of a single silence, a small tone shift, or a slightly different routine. We fill in every blank with worst-case scenarios. But the raw truth is that most of what fuels overthinking is not based on anything concrete at all. It is based on fear, on old wounds, on imagined outcomes we have rehearsed so many times that they now feel completely real. This practice of separating facts from fear does more than just calm you down for a few minutes. It gives your power back. When you challenge the dramatic story your mind is telling, you also challenge the anxiety underneath it. You create a small gap between the trigger and your emotional reaction. And inside that tiny gap, you get to choose a new response. You can choose to stay grounded instead of getting swept away. You can choose to breathe instead of spiraling. You can choose to wait, observe, and respond instead of reacting on impulse. Over time, this becomes a brand new habit. It becomes second nature to pause and ground yourself, instead of diving headfirst into self-doubt. And what is truly amazing is how quickly this one shift changes the emotional energy in your relationship, not just for you, but for both of you. You start showing up calmer, more confident, less desperate for instant answers or constant validation. That kind of energy is magnetic. It creates real space for trust to grow, instead of fear quietly taking over the room. One little trick that makes this technique stick is to literally speak the question out loud, or write it down the moment the spiral starts. Take a blank page and draw two columns. One column is labeled, "What I know." The other column is labeled, "What I am assuming." Drop your swirling thoughts into those two buckets. You will often realize, almost to your surprise, that 90% of what is actually stressing you out lives entirely inside the assumption column. This is not about denying your feelings or pretending everything is fine. It is about anchoring your feelings in truth, because only when you are rooted in what is real can you genuinely find clarity and peace. You do not have to believe every single thought you think, and you definitely do not have to follow every anxious urge that pops up. Sometimes all it takes is one brave question to stop the spiral before it even gets going. Let's bring all of this to life with a real example, a small moment that many people have already lived through, but few know how to handle in a healthy way. Imagine you are dating someone new. Things have been going beautifully for a few weeks. You are texting every single day, sharing inside jokes, having long late-night conversations that make you feel alive. There is a clear spark between you, and you are starting to feel genuinely excited about where this is going. Then suddenly one small thing shifts. One morning they do not text you first. Their replies start coming a little later than usual. The messages feel shorter, lighter, less playful. Your stomach drops almost immediately and your mind jumps straight into overdrive. What did I do wrong? Are they pulling away from me? Are they seeing someone else? Was I too available, too emotional, too eager? You reread the last conversation over and over, analyzing every word, every emoji, every pause. You text your friends asking what they think. You scroll back through their social media looking for clues. You try to act casual on the outside, but on the inside you are panicking. This is the chaos. It starts as a tiny flicker, But if you are not careful, it snowballs fast. And if you are not careful, your own reaction to the anxiety becomes the very thing that drives the other person away, far more than their original little behavior ever did. Now let's take that exact same moment and try a different mindset. Instead of reacting, you pause. You notice the anxiety creeping up in your chest, and you ask yourself that one grounded question: what do I actually know, and what am I only assuming? You sit with it for a moment, and you realize the only real fact is that they have not texted you yet today. That is it. You do not know why. You do not know if it has anything to do with you. You do not have a single piece of evidence that something is actually wrong. So you breathe. You give the moment a little space. You choose on purpose not to fill in the empty blanks with fear. And a few hours later, when they finally reach out, it turns out they had a packed day at work. Their phone died mid-afternoon, and they genuinely did not realize how much time had passed. They were not pulling away from you. They were just being a regular, busy human being. That is clarity, and it did not come from getting answers from someone else. It came from not needing instant answers in the first place. The big difference between chaos and clarity is how you choose to respond to uncertainty. One version has you clinging, over-explaining, or shutting down to protect yourself. The other version allows you to stay calm, grounded, and quietly secure, even when things feel just a little uncertain. Most people think clarity comes from the other person doing the right thing, texting on time, being super consistent, always soothing your fears. But the real truth is this: if your peace depends entirely on them, you will always be vulnerable to emotional chaos. Clarity is not something another person hands you. It is something you build for yourself through emotional discipline, through choosing not to chase every anxious thought, through building trust in your own ability to handle hard moments. The moment you stop reacting to the fear and start anchoring yourself in the present is the moment you step out of the spiral and back into your own quiet power. That is the real shift. And once you experience it, even just once, you will never want to slide back into the old pattern. One of the most subtle but quietly damaging habits inside relationships is something often called the reassurance trap. It usually starts out looking completely innocent. Just a quick check-in to feel close. A simple, "Do you still love me?" or "Are we okay?" But over time, this constant need for reassurance becomes a heavy cycle that quietly erodes trust, confidence, and real connection from the inside out. Here is how it usually plays out. You start to feel unsure about something. Maybe your partner is a little quieter than usual. Maybe they did not reply right away. Or maybe you are just feeling a little off that day and you cannot really explain why. Instead of sitting with that small discomfort, you reach outside yourself for reassurance. Maybe you ask them to confirm exactly how they feel about you. Maybe you fish for compliments. Maybe you analyze their tone, scanning for tiny hints of irritation or disconnection. When they finally reassure you, the feeling is amazing for a little while. The anxiety fades, your mind settles down, but only temporarily, because the very moment something else feels slightly uncertain, you are right back to needing reassurance again. And that right there is the trap. The more you rely on someone else to make you feel okay, the less personal power you keep over your own emotional state. The comfort never really lasts because it is external, it is reactive, and worst of all, it teaches your nervous system that uncertainty is dangerous, and the only way to feel better is to grab something from another person. This can be incredibly draining, not just for you, but for your partner too. Over time, they may quietly start to feel pressure to always say the perfect thing, to always be on, to constantly manage your shifting emotions. What started as honest vulnerability slowly becomes emotional dependency. And eventually the relationship stops feeling light, playful, and joyful. It starts feeling heavy, like a small job nobody signed up for. So what is the healthier alternative? It starts with learning how to self-soothe. That means gently building your own emotional muscle, the kind that lets you stay present during moments of doubt instead of panicking or chasing instant relief. It means talking to yourself with the same calm, kind reassurance you might give a close friend. It is okay to feel this way right now. Nothing is wrong just because it feels uncomfortable for a moment. I can handle this feeling. It does not mean you are banned from expressing your needs or asking for clarity in a relationship. Of course you can, but there is a really big difference between asking from a grounded place of connection and asking from pure panic. One version says, "I really value how we communicate, can we talk about this?" The other version says, "I need you to fix this awful feeling I am having right now." That is a huge difference, and most people can feel it instantly. When you step out of the reassurance trap, you start to reclaim a much deeper sense of safety, a safety that does not rely on someone else's mood, words, or availability. You stop needing constant confirmation that you are loved because you begin to feel it inside your own chest. And that shift changes everything. It allows your relationships to actually breathe, to grow, to flow naturally, instead of being smothered by fear. You genuinely deserve a love that feels calm and easy, and that begins by learning to become your own steady source of reassurance. Not because you do not need other people, but because you have stopped depending on them to fill the empty spaces that only you can truly hold. Emotional security is what allows you to feel grounded in a relationship, even when things are not picture perfect. It is what helps you stay calm when you do not get an instant reply. It is what stops you from spiraling when someone pulls back just slightly, or when a little plan changes at the last minute. Emotional security is the real foundation of peace, not just in love, but inside yourself. And the honest truth is, most people are trying to build relationships without first building that inner foundation. So how do you actually build emotional security in a real, lasting way? It starts with a single mindset shift. You are responsible for your own inner world. That may sound a little intimidating at first, but it is honestly the most liberating idea in the world, because it means you do not have to wait around for anyone else to behave perfectly for you to feel okay. Once you can recognize the real fear underneath the spiral, you can comfort that fear without dragging someone else in to fix it for you. That is emotional maturity. It is not about never feeling upset. It's about knowing how to respond to your feelings in a way that quietly strengthens you instead of slowly draining you. Another powerful key to building emotional security is setting and keeping small promises to yourself. This sounds almost too simple, but it is genuinely powerful. Every time you follow through on something you quietly said you would do, whether it is going for a slow walk, turning off your phone before bed, or taking a small break from social media, you send a powerful message to yourself. I can trust me. That trust compounds over time, and eventually, even when someone else disappoints you or things feel uncertain for a while, you still feel anchored because you are no longer outsourcing your emotional safety to anyone else. Boundaries also play a huge role in all of this. People often associate the word boundaries with pushing others away, but in reality, boundaries are what make deep connection possible in the first place. When you know your own limits, what you will and will not tolerate, what you genuinely need to feel safe, you stop quietly betraying yourself just for the sake of keeping the peace. That kind of quiet integrity builds real confidence. And confidence is one of the most magnetic, calming forces you can bring into any relationship. The most emotionally secure people are not the ones who never get triggered. They are the ones who know exactly how to handle those moments without abandoning themselves. They give themselves permission to feel what they feel, but they do not let their emotions run the whole show. They do not chase, they do not cling, and they do not perform just to feel worthy. They already know deep down that they are. When you build real emotional security, you become the calm inside your own storm. That peace does not just improve your relationship, it completely transforms it, because love can only thrive where safety lives. And that safety begins with you. When you are emotionally responsible, you speak from your own direct experience, not from your wild assumptions. You are not trying to control how the other person feels, and you are not trying to force them into a certain reaction. You are simply sharing your honest truth and trusting that your needs matter enough to be voiced clearly, without manipulation or guilt. Another quiet sign of healthy communication is being able to genuinely listen without already waiting to talk. That sounds small, but it is honestly rare. Most people listen with a hidden agenda. They are already preparing a rebuttal, scanning the conversation for a tiny threat. But in healthy relationships, people slow down and they truly hear each other. Not just the actual words, but the soft emotion sitting underneath the words. They listen to understand, not to win. One powerful little example of this is when someone says to you, "I felt really hurt by what you said the other day." A defensive response might sound like, "Well, that was absolutely not my intention," or "You are being way too sensitive right now." But a healthy response might sound more like, "I really did not realize it landed that way for you. Can you tell me a little more about what you felt?" That kind of response does not mean you are admitting you did something wrong. It simply means you care enough to step inside someone else's world for a moment. Healthy communication also means being direct instead of passive-aggressive. A lot of people think they are being kind by avoiding conflict altogether, but silence can honestly be just as damaging as yelling. When you bottle things up, they do not magically disappear. They leak out in tiny, destructive ways. Little sarcastic comments, stonewalling, slow emotional withdrawal. These are all quiet symptoms of unspoken truth. Speaking up is not always easy, especially if you were raised in a home where conflict was avoided or where you had to walk on eggshells. But real intimacy always requires real honesty. Not brutal honesty, not harsh criticism, but gentle, clear, and compassionate truth. When you express your thoughts and feelings directly, without blame, you create real space for deeper trust. You show your partner that the relationship is strong enough to actually hold some discomfort. And a big part of healthy communication is simply timing. Not every conversation needs to happen in the raw heat of an emotion. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is say, "I really want to talk about this with you, but I need a few minutes to process my own thoughts first." That is maturity, that is grace. That is you valuing the connection enough to approach it with real care, instead of raw reaction. And here is the truly beautiful part. Once you start communicating in this grounded way, you quietly raise the standard for every single interaction you have. You stop settling for shallow, surface-level connection. You stop tolerating hot and cold behavior because you have learned how to actually use your voice. And that voice will always lead you back to your own honest truth. Ultimately, healthy communication is about creating safety. Safety to be honest, safety to not be perfect, safety to work through the messy, confusing parts of love without shutting down or blowing up. It's a real practice. It takes patience. But when both people are committed to that level of honesty and empathy, the relationship becomes a space where both individuals can truly thrive, not just barely survive. There is that harsh inner voice that whispers, "Of course they are pulling away. You always mess things up. You are way too much. You are honestly not enough. You are going to get hurt all over again." These are not just passing thoughts. They are deep beliefs dressed up as facts, and they quietly shape how we show up in love, in trust, and in vulnerability. The very first step toward changing them is simple awareness. Start noticing the actual tone of your inner thoughts. When you make a tiny mistake, do you automatically say to yourself, "I am such an idiot"? When someone you care about seems a little distant, do you instantly assume it is somehow about you? When something feels uncertain, do you spiral straight into worst-case scenarios? These reactions might honestly feel automatic at this point, but they are absolutely not unchangeable. They are old scripts you have been quietly repeating for years, maybe even decades. And every single time you repeat them, you strengthen them a little more. But here is the genuinely good news. Your inner voice is completely trainable. You can interrupt the old story and slowly write a brand new one. The very moment you hear that harsh, judgmental thought pop up, pause, take a breath, and gently challenge it. Ask yourself, is this thought actually true? Is it genuinely helpful? Would I ever say this cruel thing to a close friend? Chances are the honest answer is no. And if you would not speak that way to someone you love, you really do not need to speak that way to yourself either. These little reframes are not just cute affirmations. They are real anchors. They quietly remind your nervous system that you are safe, even when you do not have every single answer yet. That you are worthy, even when someone else's behavior temporarily makes you question it. That you are growing, even when you still feel a little stuck. Your mind will probably resist this at first. It is used to the old programming. It is used to bracing for impact, scanning for danger, automatically assuming the worst. That is survival mode. But love does not really thrive in survival mode. It thrives in trust. And trust always begins quietly inside you. Every single time you reframe a harsh thought with genuine compassion, you rewire your brain for real emotional resilience. You create a small, beautiful space between the trigger and your reaction. You stop letting fear run the whole show. And over time, your inner voice becomes your greatest ally instead of your biggest bully. Imagine waking up in the morning and quietly hearing this instead. You do not have to be perfect to be loved. You are fully allowed to be a work in progress. You are showing up. You are growing yourself one day at a time. That kind of gentle inner dialogue quietly changes how you walk into a room, how you express your needs, how you handle silence, and how you respond to small moments of uncertainty. It is not magic. It is simply a daily choice. And the more you make that small choice, the more you realize your peace was never really dependent on someone else choosing you. It was always quietly about you choosing yourself first. As we wrap up today's conversation, I want to leave you with a few simple but powerful takeaways, practical little tools you can start applying right now to stop overthinking your relationships and build the emotional security you genuinely deserve. First, remember that your feelings are absolutely valid, but not every single one of your thoughts is the truth. Your mind can trick you into believing the worst, but you have the quiet power to pause, ask grounding questions, and anchor yourself in what you actually know, not in what you are only assuming. Next, gently challenge the habit of seeking constant reassurance from other people. While it is completely normal to want a little affirmation here and there, true emotional security always comes from self-validation. Build your confidence in your own worth and watch how your relationships quietly transform as a natural result. Do not place the heavy burden of your inner peace on someone else's shoulders. When you find calm inside yourself, the need for outside validation naturally begins to fade. The third big takeaway is healthy, honest communication. If you're in a relationship, make a quiet commitment to communicate clearly and kindly. Express your real needs, but do so with compassion, not from a place of panic or blame. Practice speaking from your own direct experience, not from your scary assumptions. And remember, listening is just as important as speaking. Real connection always comes from understanding, not just from being understood. Finally, gently reframe your inner dialogue. Every time you catch yourself slipping into a spiral of negative thoughts, gently remind yourself that you have the power to rewrite them. Replace harsh judgment with quiet compassion. Replace "I am not good enough" with "I am enough exactly as I am, and I am still learning." This one simple shift can profoundly change how you feel inside and how you show up inside your relationships. Building emotional security and breaking the cycle of overthinking is a real journey. It takes time, practice, and a lot of gentle self-compassion, but the rewards are absolutely worth it. Deeper, more peaceful relationships, stronger trust in your own quiet voice, and a much more fulfilling sense of connection to the people you love. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If these ideas felt useful to you, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights on building stronger, healthier relationships. Please take really good care of yourself, and remember, you are worth every single bit of effort it takes to truly love yourself first.